Hello, welcome. I have Julia with me here today. We are in for some definite sacred work in progress. I'm a bundle today. Julia, I'm so excited to speak with you and learn more about all the fun things that you are doing to help other soulful entrepreneurs. And yeah, would you introduce yourself for our listeners today?
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. My name is Julia Phoenix. I am a spiritual mentor for leaders and a DNA activator. So, what this means is that I help people to illuminate their dormant gifts and abilities, to activate and open them, amplify them, and wield them in whatever way their soul is calling them to, especially inside of their businesses. So integrating, their various capacities and really the fullest expression of who they are as a soul into what they're doing, whether that be on the front end, on the back end, or, whatever the case may be. That is what I do.
Yeah, that all sounds like so interesting. I feel like I already have like three directions that my brain wants to run and like ask you
Oh, I'm so
questions.
excited. Yeah.
But the first part of what you shared there, which you spoke to DNA activation. Could
Yeah.
you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. That's a whole thing. And I don't know, how
Yeah.
far out to kind of go with your listeners, but I'll just explain that, you know, there's our physical body. A lot of people understand like we have our physical body and then we have like this physical DNA, and most people know what that is. And you can observe that, through a microscope or whatever. We've all seen the double helix. We're familiar with that. But if you're looking at the makeup of someone's soul and their energy body, we actually have additional strands of DNA that are non-physical. So this means you can't see them if you're looking at them microscope, like through a microscope. Doesn't mean they don't exist. People who are, extrasensory can see them, and these DNA strands contain these additional strands. They're like, light strand is often what they're called. They contain additional gifts and abilities and capacities, such as like psychic gifts, for example, or, the ability to, I don't know, what's a good one to just use as an example? The ability to astral travel at will, like, all of these cool things, right? But they also contain our ability to feel and see and experience life just through a different lens, through a lens that is more spiritual in nature. And, I truly believe that part of what's happening to individuals on our planet now is an evolutionary process where we're transitioning from operating through just more of like that sort of carbon based structure of the DNA to a crystalline structure. So this is like we're transitioning to operating with these light bodies in addition to our physical bodies, right? A lot of people call this ascension. People have different terms for this, but we have everything that we need kind of right here coded into us. It's like a template, right? So I see it like it's almost like a room with a light turned off. The light switch is there, like the light is there. We just need somebody to come and flick it on. And so DNA activation basically like turns the light on and opens up all these extra rooms in your house you didn't know that you have. So that's kind of the most basic way to explain it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To me it does. I don't know if it'll make sense to everyone who's listening, but depends where they are maybe in their journey and their, kind of spiritual
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. And if it's not for you, like that's fine too. I'm not attached to everybody,
Yeah, for sure.
needing to.
So kind of a question to tack onto that one. So when you talk about like activating the DNA activation, is that like a meditative thing? Is that how does that present? Like what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, great question. So it can be, the truth is that we can go through DNA activation really at any time, and there can be so many different triggers for that. For example, like you could be called to travel to a specific location, you
Mm,
know, and then because the land has that capacity to activate dormant DNA. You could receive DNA activations from being on that land. You could meet a specific person, you could have all kinds of triggers for this process to occur. So my process and the way that I work with it is not the only way. And if anybody tells you the only way to activate your DNA is like to do my process, that's not true, But I do have a specific process that's designed to it basically eliminates the things that are blocking that process from happening. And then it does facilitate that process through sound. So sound, light, energy, right? There are these different ways that people will work with it. It is kind of meditative, I guess you could say. I mean, people sit to receive it or lie down usually, but they're also not really doing anything. They're just kind of receiving. And it's actually the way that I work with what I'm seeing in their energy body and in their field, using sound and focus and other things to clear, the blockages, I guess you could say, and to clear distortion in their field and then activate these dormant lines of code in the DNA.
Yeah, I find this super fascinating because I would have to pull up. I've written on this and researched and written this topic a little bit, but the idea of kind of the way that our DNA is in evolution, essentially.
Yeah.
A little bit on that, because I believe it somehow relates to, I most closely understand and relate to it through the lens of human design.
Yes.
The great change to come if we're studying the gene key, and that, shift into the sleeping phoenix era, all of that stuff. I think something is happening on a DNA level.
Yes,
that's
it is.
All of us, and, calling us into it. And
absolutely.
I don't know that I could speak live on a podcast intelligently on all of the ways that our DNA is changing, but I have researched it and written some about it and kind of connected the two worlds a little bit. And so that's why that piqued my curiosity a lot, was the idea of that. And as you were sharing about being called to certain places or to people or experiences or whatever that looks like, I was like, oh yeah, I've definitely. We went to Sedona, and I know Sedona is a huge energy vortex, and it's that was not by mistake, I'm sure, that we were out of nowhere in January, it's just, yeah. I mean, do you find that's how it happens for a lot of people, is having these, they're called into a place and then they meet a person and they have an experience and just, yeah.
Yes. And I always like to say that our biggest part in the process is being willing to follow those intuitive pulls and being willing to be guided into those experiences. You know what I'm saying? Because our soul is really, and this is my belief and my opinion and my lens and how I see things, but I really believe that our soul is kind of guiding the whole thing. So the soul knows to take you to this place, this person, doing this thing, saying yes to this thing is going to lead to that thing, which is going to lead to that thing, which is going to, be a massive activation for you. But you're like, that doesn't make sense to my logical mind. This is not a good time. I don't have the money for that airplane ticket. Whatever the human is kind of so there's this kind of element of willingness to follow. And I think there's nuance there, right? We live in a human body and we have, I know you're very much in agreement with this, but it's we have nervous systems, we have to, check in with things on multiple layers of our being, and we get to choose what's in alignment in accordance with what we're prioritizing. But at the end of the day, the DNA activation process, the way that I see it, is that it's almost like it gathers momentum, because the more dormant DNA that you activate, the more of your soul you have access to in your body, the more truth you can feel and see and hear and know, the more psychic senses you have on. So the more you're going to get guided to the more and more things, more and more clearly, that are going to facilitate more of that activation process.
Yeah, that makes sense a lot. I feel on my own kind of spiritual sort of personal journey, it's sometimes it's this roller coaster that's moving really fast, and it's because, the opportunities present and I'm, the energy is there, and when you're moving, and then sometimes a slowdown, it's a shift, it's a pivot, it's a wait, it's,
Yes, and we need those spaces for integration too.
yeah,
Definitely a big fan of that for sure.
yeah.
I know that. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
feel like
because
for
our
me it's
physical body.
forced integration.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
forced to slow down because I don't do the slow down very well.
I think you're in good company
Yeah,
with that one.
yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I know that one of like the only topic that we kind of gave ourselves for today
Yeah,
was the concept of owning your magic, which I feel like
yeah,
you're very much doing when we think about helping others to own those special gifts and just
yeah,
to connect with them, to you know feel confident sharing them
yeah.
seems to be a big part of it. Could you speak a little bit to kind of just, I don't know, whatever comes to you on the idea of kind of owning those gifts and from a place of confidence too, because I feel like for many, for myself, I can speak for myself absolutely that, for a long time I had this spiritual practice and I was using astrology and human design and all of this personal development stuff in my own life, but not so outwardly. And now it's like, oh, I feel
Mhm.
I must share now. I must. Um, and so taking that step was felt big for me. So I imagine it's very similar for others, depending on, whatever they're sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is really big. I think it's big for anyone. And I think that's an interesting spot that a lot of people are probably in right now who are listening. It's like I have these things that I know that I'm doing kind of on the back end or that I'm really into. But there's this like something in me is pulling me to bring it forward, but then there's all these fears, right? So I think the first thing would be to really look at and get granular with like what is the fear for me or what are the resistances for me, because it's going to look differently for different people. I can tell you some of the really big ones that I see, but like for some people, it's like, I don't think I'm credible enough. And so I'm going to be judged because I haven't been trained enough or I don't have a certification or, it's like they have a big thing around that. For some people, it might be more of a general like visibility thing. For some people, it might be like, I'm actually afraid that I might harm someone with this gift. And that might come from a different place. It might come from religious, upbringing, or it might come from past life stuff, or there's all kinds of places that these fears can come from. But I would say getting really clear and specific about what those fears are for you. And then this is the other thing I'm going to share and I'm going to say, like, to your listeners is like, I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I have a master's degree in human development, and I specialized in like early childhood development and education. So I'm like really I do have this lens of like we have these developmental needs, and these developmental needs, um, when they're not met, there can be an issue, right? With something like confidence, for example, something like being visible with our gifts and being out there and outspoken and feeling good about ourselves and trying something. And if it fails, it's okay, right? One of these developmental needs that we never quite grow out of that we will need is mirroring. It's very simple. And mirroring is just like, I see that you are this. I see that you're doing this. I see that you're really interested in this. I see that this lights you up, And most of us didn't get this around these particular interests or gifts that we have, right? Why? Not even necessarily because anything was wrong with any adults around us, but it's like they just probably weren't necessarily tuned into the same things. You know, a child is talking to themselves in their bedroom all day long. They're not really talking to themselves, they're really talking to their spirit guides. And the parent asks, what's wrong with you? You're talking to yourself. Well, I'm talking to my magician friend. There's no one there, sweetie, right? So we don't get the mirroring. In fact, we get mirroring that it's not real. And so then we don't get to develop the confidence, right? So part of the process and why it can be so beneficial to work with a mentor, which I have, by the way, like before, I had a whole business that was not really centered around these things. I worked with a mentor that was like, yes, Julia, you are activating people's dormant DNA. I see it too, right? This is not an illusion. I see who you are. I see the same things that you see. And I'm here to be in that reality with you. I actually think that's really important. So whether you're getting that from mentorship, whether you're getting that from other peers, that are doing similar things like astrology or human design or whatever, but I'm talking about direct mirroring to you and connection with others who can meet you in your gift. Did you have any of that when you made the decision to kind of come forward with this?
Yes, I guess technically I did, but maybe not exactly a mirror. But I feel like I would be lying if I said that there wasn't others who showed me the path on some level, or like
Yeah.
reflected something, or just somebody that I could connect with that saw the depth in some of these tools that I'm using. And like, because
Yeah.
I did participate in some different, I don't even know what to call them, like cohorts, like mini,
Hmm.
group things, and I don't know. But
That can
yeah.
be huge. I think that can be really, really huge, just having those connection points even with people who are kind of in the same realm. There's so many layers to the conversation though. I mean, there's so many different reasons again, like why someone wouldn't have quite the confidence. Some of it is actually just practice, and some of it that will come from literally just getting out there and doing it. But yeah, there's lots of reasons why, but most of it I find is conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that for sure. I think for me personally, what like I had two different businesses essentially. I had like an arts business, and I had my like more typical business where I was helping other entrepreneurs and things. And I felt like with one, I was, obviously very much myself in my art business on some level, but
Mhm.
I spiritual kind of like practice in the closet. And then
Yeah.
I was, using these tools behind the scenes, but I had them living in separate worlds. And then I was like, I felt like straddled, like my energy was just being sucked in two different directions. And I'm like, these are both me, but they're not together. And so I took a
Yes.
plunge and I combined them. And then that's when I kind of like let it all like kind of out and present itself. And for me, I think it was a lot of that. It was like, what are they going to think? Like, what are my traditional business clients going to think when, I start sharing these things? And I felt like it didn't belong. And it,
Yeah, yeah. And so you probably had to kind of confront all of that and confront any wounds that were there. That's big. I mean, this is, our nervous systems are wired for social safety. And so,
yeah,
I find it really important to be tapped into an even deeper desire than that when we're doing this. And what I'm really hearing in what you're saying, which is a thread I just kind of want to pull at because it's the foundation really of this work that I do with people, is like you're talking about your desire for full expression in the world, you know?
yeah,
And you're talking about this desire for liberation of any masks, any compartmentalization for the sake of others, or to not rock the boat, or to make sure your, you know, income is steady or whatever. And ultimately it's like that's not of service to my soul, and what's not of service to our soul is not genuinely of service to the planet or to others either. And you probably, you might have landed there too, where it's like, I believe that it is of highest service to everyone when we are fully liberated in the expression of our soul. I think that's what we're here to do. And I think all of the gifts that we have, all of the magic that we have, it's not separate from that. It's not separate from who we are. And so, yeah, kudos to you for making that
thank
leap.
you. And to you for feeling the call to support others who are navigating things like that, because yeah, I'm sure that the road could have been easier with more support,
For for
Sure. As you were saying and sharing, I kept thinking, like, I had so many thoughts, but mainly about this idea of authenticity,
yeah,
which I keep feeling called to speak and share on the idea of authenticity because of all these studies being found to show that the frequency of authenticity is even higher than that of love,
that's
which
right.
was previously thought to be the highest frequency of all. And I really believe that this time that we're moving into is going to be a time where if it's not authentic, it's not going to hold. I
Yes.
mean, and I feel like when you're going to help someone own these gifts and own these things that they know to be true, or they can sense something on the other side, then that brings them into a place of more authenticity, more wholeness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're nailing it. You're nailing it on the head, and I think it's also just from an entrepreneurial lens, just to take what you shared, which is just a very profound spiritual truth, and look at it through the entrepreneurial lens. I believe that audiences and markets are very sick of being lied to, manipulated, like, shown a facade, right?
Mhm.
People in general are not responding to this in the same way that they maybe used to. This is what I see. And I've been in the entrepreneurial world for the last 10 years with my own business, which isn't actually that long as compared to some others. But I've also heard a lot of people saying this who have been in the game for a very long time. The things that used to work aren't working in quite the same way because people are, their souls are waking up and they are hungry for what's real. And they'll be able to smell and taste and feel if something in what you're presenting is a little off, or they can sense that there's something back there that you're not really bringing up front, and this is not to say, I'm someone who believes there are people who are here to like teach very 3D concepts or work at that level. And that's what their soul came here to do. So I'm not even saying that everyone needs to do what I help people do. But if you are a person who, in your free time, you're watching videos on YouTube about Atlantis and Lemuria, and you're studying energy work and crystals, and you're like, and then you've got this business that is just like has none of that. There's can be like a dissonance if you feel called to bring those things in and you're not, right? Markets feel that, audiences feel that. People want to see and feel the whole of you. And I can say, as well, like it just feels better. I don't know if you experience this,
Yeah.
but for me, to not feel like I have to hide
Yeah.
any piece of
Put
my
things in a shoebox real quick or whatever. Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. I so wholly agree with a lot of the things that you just shared. And I mean, yeah, I've been sharing and writing and speaking a lot about the very things that you shared about, these sort of marketing tactics, like the bro marketing world, I call it, is like, I don't want to say it's no more because, like you said, I think there are people who are meant to thrive in that kind of older paradigm, in that,
Sure.
different layer of the world. But many of us, I think, and maybe it has to do with that, DNA change happening
Yeah.
in all of us that is kind of like splitting the world on some level. Maybe that's part of it. I keep coming back to that. And yeah, I feel like if I allowed that, like, just divide to stay there and to just get wider and wider in those two parts of me, that I was feeling the effects in my business not working for me. Like
Right.
the
Exactly.
disconnect was showing up in inconsistent income. And, it was just, yeah,
Exactly. I love that you're sharing this because this is what I try to share with people as well, is it's like that is a result of not living your mission fully, really, or and you can look at that in very practical terms, like with what we were just talking about. You can also just look at that in terms of like, again, you're mentioning you're kind of part of this particular maybe like subsection of beings. I have met many of them, and many of them are my clients, who not only does that type of marketing or that very 3D way of making money, not only do they not respond to it, as in like they're not going to buy from people that are just like, that's they don't make mental decisions, right? And even in human design, we're not supposed to make mental decisions, so people who are living this way, they're not going to necessarily buy that way. But also, I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I've spoken to that they're like, I hired the best strategist. Like, I did all the ads, I did the funnels, I did the best copy, the best one. I hired a messaging expert who I paid 50K to help me dial in my message to the right high ticket buyers. And it was like nothing,
yeah,
because those things are not really the thing for
Yeah.
people like us. It's not that you don't need them. I mean, I'm like you in that, we were talking a little bit before. It's like I think there's a place for everything. I think strategy is beautiful and important. I think you have to know how to do certain things, in the world. You can't just sit around and, just talk to non-physical beings all day and expect to grow a business. But at the end of the day, your frequency needs to be the thing that is leading, and it needs to be aligned with what you're doing, and you need to be fully on board with it, and it needs to be really your soul mission. Otherwise, all that
Yeah.
other stuff isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of what you name there is exactly what I'm helping people with. I do
Mm,
call them like energetic business strategy sessions where I'm looking at their human design and astrology charts to understand how their energy is meant to be expressed, how they're designed to connect with their people. What kind
yes,
of offers are in alignment for their energy based on their
beautiful.
DNA, based on their
Yes.
so it's just, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
really,
it's similar. We just do it in a different way.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure there's many ways to get to these points and, different ways, different lenses and different things that land for different people and at different
Yeah.
times.
Can I ask your human design? I'm so curious.
My human design,
Yeah.
I am a 4/6 manifesting generator.
Okay.
I've got the 3420 in my conscious sun and earth.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that 34 is why I'm such a busy friggin' body.
I think I have that too. That's a sacral gate, right?
The 34, yeah, it goes sacral to the 3420 goes from your
Okay.
sacral
I
to
know
your
I
throat.
have the 34. I don't know if it's the full channel, but that's like
Yeah.
we're
I've
like
got like
neighbors.
every channel in that the 3420, the 2057, like the 3410, like all of the channels that all run there is
Oh,
like I
wow.
have like all of them. That's like there's a lot of conversation going on there in those like few channels. It's just
Wow. Yeah, you're meant to be really in the doing.
yeah.
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 Well, and I could see that 4/6 with, I mean, podcasting for you makes
Yeah,
a lot
for
of
sure.
sense, right?
Yeah.
My partner's a 4/6 projector, but I find it so fascinating too. And I actually always bring in my clients' human design charts as well. And I'm not an expert by any
Very
means
cool.
at reading the chart, but it's a way of seeing, like, it's a reference point for what is going to work, you know, for
Yeah,
them, as
for
far
sure.
as, especially when we're working on the business end of things, when we're working on the gift development, like that, I'm not, that's not my tool. Obviously it's, it's different, but when we're working on, things like, okay, I have this modality that I've created through my gifts. What is the best way for me to get that out into the world and market it? That is so relevant and so helpful. Like, I mean, I'm preaching to the
Yeah,
choir, but just for
yeah,
your listeners, I'm a 5/1. So 5/1 generator. So the way that I would promote an offering and have it be successful is very different than the way that my 4/6 projector partner would. Like, if he tries to do it the way that I do it, the result is not the same, right? And vice versa.
yeah. That's a big part of why I feel like so frustrated, I guess, by a lot of the typical business, like marketing kind of that world, because a lot of it pushes like, oh, 6-figure promises and like all this, like the formula, here it is. Like, this is what I did. You can do it too. And it's like, no, you're this design and everybody else is something else. And it's probably not going to work. Or like, they get the one poster child that it worked for. And it's like,
Right. And then if it doesn't work for someone, it's like, well, you just didn't
you
try.
didn't try hard enough. You didn't want to
Yeah.
gotta show up more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
really careful of that myself. And I really, that this is why too, it's like, I would say a huge focus in my work is just helping people to trust themselves and their unique gifts. And so that doesn't involve me necessarily telling people what's going to work for them. Even if I do see their chart or whatever, it's like, okay, well, you have the capacity, you've been given this technology. Even human design is a technology, and I think there's other ways that we can it's a beautiful tool. And there's other ways we can work with our energy bodies and our gifts and whatever. But it's like, you've been given this technology to tap in for yourself and to actually intuitively know what will work for you. Like, you have a GPS, you have a guidance system, right? And so it's like, I feel like where our work sort of crosses over, one place that it crosses over is like teaching people how to use their own GPS in the entrepreneurial world as well as everywhere else in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, also a huge part of I feel there's so many like mirroring things happening here.
I know.
And yeah, a big part of the work that I'm doing is really, again, in different ways, helping people to tune in and trust their own unique path and that they know what's right for them. And that's another human design kind of thing, which I know you know, but having understanding of how you're intended to make decisions and know what's right for you and feel into alignment. And
it's so really huge. It's definitely a pet peeve of mine as well with because I'm emotional authority. So the whole like fast action thing, and if you like wait to make a decision, it means you don't trust yourself or you're not a high level entrepreneur or CEO or whatever. I'm like, no, thank you. I will take a week. I will take 2 weeks. I will take 6 months if I need to. And if you need an answer from me right away, it's going to be no.
Yeah.
Because that's how I'm designed.
You're doing a lot better than most emotional authorities.
Well, it took me a minute.
Yeah, I bet.
To learn that one.
I feel like the emotional authorities want to just be able to be and live in the moment. And it's not to say that you don't have these really powerful intuitive hits and that may be correct for you in the long term, but it's like, ooh,
it's just learning
the slowdown is
a lot of time. And it's so interesting because I love exploring this. It's like where the human design also kind of crosses over with like other faculties of like perception and intuition, because I have like all my clairs on and popping and everything. So I might have a guide talking in my ear and saying this opportunity is really important for you. You need to do this thing. And I might be like, okay. And then I have this other, I can see the timeline of I'm doing the thing and it's like successful. I still may choose to wait. I still may be like, in service to, because for me, human design is like also it's the way my body is talking to me and urging me to make decisions. And I'm here to honor that. So there are very rare occasions where because of a time crunch and because of the way situations line up that I have to override it. Right. And in those cases, I'm really grateful that I have these other faculties of perception. But otherwise, I'm going to be like, okay, cool. Like, good to have that information coming in. I'm still waiting. Like, I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to wait, right? Because it's a way that I honor my body and my system. And I've just learned that it's just best.
Yeah.
That's for me. My partner and I are both emotional authorities. So when we're both in our wave, we're not resolving a conflict.
And are you on the same wave?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
I think it's important to name for anyone who's tuning in that might be an emotional authority is, when we're talking about having to wait for timing or, being sure of a decision, it's so important to note that the right decisions will feel more right over time. So it's like,
absolutely,
that's kind of how it will happen. So you don't have to worry that you're going to miss the boat, that you're going to, choose wrong, or, it will feel more correct over time.
Exactly.
You experience that?
Oh, yes, definitely. The right decisions will feel more correct over time. I heard such a beautiful description. I think it was from somebody on Instagram, Raquel, and I can't remember her last name, but she's a human design person. She was talking about, because she has emotional authority, and she was saying, if you're an emotional authority, every answer is a no at first until a quiet yes bubbles up to the surface. And I loved that so much. It just felt so true to my own experience. And to me, it actually feels like a weight off, because that pressure, and this is the conditioning, it's just the societal pressure to know right away, to make a decision right away, like to just allow myself the space to get away from that pressure and to know that quiet yes will bubble up and it becomes like this solid, some people say neutral, I like to think of it like a solidness. It becomes this like solid knowing in my
Yeah.
system. Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm just grateful I don't have the splenic authority where like it just like whispers once and then you're screwed. Like,
And then you gotta
that,
catch up. What?
you didn't listen, you're in trouble.
Wait, are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
sacral?
I have the sacral
Okay.
authority. So
Okay.
it's very real and I feel it so physically. It's just wild.
Mm,
Like I my body either pulls forward or it pulls back. It's like
yeah.
very, very,
Yeah.
very concrete. Yeah. Very concrete and in the now. Like 100%.
Yes, very in the now. Yeah. My mentor is a sacral authority, and I watch how she moves when she's in alignment. And it's very much like a flow state of now decisions, you
Yeah.
know, based on the body. It's just
Yeah.
different. I don't know, but I love it. And one thing that, my work with DNA activation, looking at working with the spiritual technologies that are unique to each individual, the gifts that are unique to each individual, where that overlaps with human design is like we are all so incredibly unique. I think it's even more unique than what you see in human design, to be honest. But human design definitely gives us the permission to see and the framework to see that like everyone is not the same at
Yeah.
all. It's just not. We each have our unique pieces of the puzzle. We each have, our unique architecture, and we're here to operate exactly that way. We're not here to compare ourselves to others. We're not here to fit into other people's templates.
Yeah, that permission slip is exactly how I describe it too.
Mm.
That's what it was for me. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to have all of these different interests. Like
You're
I'm
like
supposed
literally
to like
supposed to be this
be
busy.
crazy. Yeah, like it's okay that I'm just juggling another ball. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
This is how I'm supposed to be living. And yeah,
Yeah,
it was the
totally.
biggest.
For me, it was also really liberating when I found out about my motivation because I'm desire motivated.
Me too.
Okay, so you get it, but it's like I was coming across all of these resources or information. It's like they just don't have any expectation as to the outcome of something, and just like this like almost like Buddhist kind of philosophy of just be in the moment. And this is really big in the spiritual space, right? It's like we're just in the now, we're here to just, your purpose is just to experience the now. And I was like, well, what is this driving force of energy that's like pulling me towards this mission? And once I found out like that's correct, and I was given that permission to just fully embrace it, it really changed things for me.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you named the desire because I feel like for whatever reason, that's not necessarily like one of the first things that I look to when I'm like peeking someone's
Uh,
chart. But now I'm like, oh, I feel like I have to integrate that more and just, yeah,
I feel like it's
yeah,
important. It's one that when I found out about it, and when I look at other people's charts too, it's like makes sense. I think it especially factors in when we're talking about career and work and purpose and entrepreneurship, right?
yeah,
Because like my partner's guilt motivated, for example, like that's a very, very different, like he's here to like fix a problem. So like he's gonna be really motivated by that, and I'm just not. But the motivation is that's our fire, right? Like that's what we are gonna have energy for. That's what we're gonna spring into action for. And so especially if someone is literally struggling with like, I don't have that. I don't have that spark. I don't have that thing that is motivating me towards a particular direction, or I feel lost. I feel like plugging back into the motivation. That's why I always go to the mission. That's like the bigger picture, the vision, the mission, because it turns on that energy for me to keep going.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm watching the time here. I'm like,
I
oh
know we
my
could
God.
talk
I'm like,
forever.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you if you have anything special going on that you'd like to take a moment to share. If you Do you have anything coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, it depends when this is going to actually release. Do you have any idea when this will be
I
released?
usually turn them around pretty quickly. People could
Okay.
hear this in a couple days.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, perfect. So I actually just opened up a container for women that I run called Conduit. It's my signature program for developing your unique gifts and channeling, bringing through your own unique modality, method, or framework to use in your work, right? So, like for the people who are listening, that they're like, I feel like I'm meant to bring something through that is my own. And I'm instead, using other people's modalities, even if it's human design, gene key. I mean, these are beautiful things, but it's like I feel like I have my own thing that I'm not really using, and I don't know how to go about creating that. I want to be able to tap into that, and I need a powerful container to hold that birthing process. This is Conduit. It's a really unique, really beautiful experience. Small group with women, so would really encourage people to check that out. Otherwise, I have a membership. I have my one-to-one mentorship spots open, and I have single sessions as well. So people can find all of that information on my website, which I'm sure you'll have in the show
Yeah,
notes. So
I'll
it's
drop it in the show notes.
phoenix11.com. Yeah. And if
Yeah.
people could reach out to me directly about Conduit, either on my socials, or you can email through the website, or email juliaphoenix11@gmail.com. We can chat about Conduit.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Julia. I love this. I feel like I jumped you right into the deep end at the start with the DNA conversation, but
Oh, I
that was
loved it. It was
calling
so
to me.
fun.
So yeah.
It was great.
Anyway, thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in here. Sacred work in progress. If you would take a moment to leave me a rating or review if you enjoyed this episode, and I will have all of Julia's contact information and information about her conduit in the show notes, I guess. And until next time, we'll see you.